Pullman strike of 1894, centered in Chicago, Illinois, was the first national strike in United States history. Before coming to an end, it involved over 150,000 persons and 27 states and territories. Pullman Palace Car Company was famed for its sleeper and luxury rail cars that it manufactured. One of these manufacturing locations was in Pullman, Illinois. George M. Pullman founded the town of Pullman as a place where his workers could live. The town was conceived and designed on the premise of being a
I, George Pullman of the Pullman Car Company, founded Pullman City as a clean, organized center for my employees. They should consider their living conditions incomparably better than their counterparts in the slums of Chicago.
The rent for a house in Pullman City was about 25% higher than surrounding areas. Pullman workers were required to live in Pullman City. They were expected to accept cuts in pay and not criticize workloads. In 1893, because of a depression, factory wages at the company fell about 25%, but the rents George Pullman charged did not decrease. Angry workers united and formed a committee, and on May 7th went to Pullman to ask to have their rent lowered. On May 7th and 9th, they were flatly refused. 3 of the committee members were terminated. This caused the workers to declare that they were going to strike, and on May 10th, 1894, they walked off their jobs. On May 11th, 1894, the Pullman plant closed. The boycott, although centered in Chicago, crippled railroad traffic nationwide. The strike began peacefully, but after several weeks, the Pullman management had not changed its position, and the strikers were desperate for aid. The recently formed American Railway Union offered to send arbitrators for the Pullman cause. The American Railroad Union was founded by Eugene V. Debs. Debs had moved to Chicago, where he became a railroad fireman. He became aware of the working conditions of his fellow laborers, seeing men working for low wages, some of whom were injured or killed because of unsafe equipment. He was determined to make things better.
I, Eugene Debs, head of the American Railway Union, felt it necessary to do all in my power to assist the Pullman strikers. Despite our best efforts to settle with Mr. Pullman privately, we were forced to make their struggles public.
The boycott, although centered in Chicago, crippled railroad traffic nationwide. On June 26th, the ARU switchmen started to refuse to switch trains with Pullman cars. In response, the General Managers Association began to fire the switchmen for not handling the cars. The strike and boycott rapidly expanded, paralyzing the Chicago rail yards and most of the 24 rail lines in the city. Attorney General Richard Olney supported the General Managers Association because he believed that the railroads had the right to do things their way, and if the workers disagreed with the treatment they were receiving, they could quit. Olney obtained the injunction from a federal court. This was the first time a federal injunction had been issued against a strike. The injunction said the strike was illegal. When the strikers did not return to work the next day, and the fact that mail trains might be delayed, caused President Grover Cleveland to send in federal troops from Fort Sheridan. Governor Altgeld of Illinois had been hesitant to employ the state militia to put down the strike, instead of relying on local authorities to handle the situation. The enraged strikers and rioters began stopping trains, smashing switches, and again setting fire to anything that would burn. On July 7th, another mob stopped soldiers escorting a train through the downtown Chicago area. When National Guardsmen, after being assaulted, fired into the crowd, killing at least 4, possibly up to 30, and wounding at least 20.
We went out that day angry because of them federal troops had been sent. People started stopping trains with soldiers on them, even setting fire to some. I don't know who started it, but we was downtown when they started firing into the crowd. People were running everywhere. Some got shot, some got arrested. I just ran.
The violence in Chicago made headlines across the country, from newspapers like Harper's Weekly to the New York Times. On July 10, 1894, Debs and 3 other union leaders were arrested for interfering with U.S. mail. They were released within a few hours, but Debs realized that continuing the strike would be a lost cause. Although ultimately the Pullman strike failed, it showed the power of large-scale organized labor unions and the federal government's willingness to intervene and support capitalist interests. George Pullman was no longer regarded as an enlightened employer who took care of his workers, but as a greedy and intolerant man.